D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you today. Willie Donick out again today. It's his daughter's college graduation. Congratulations. No, it was last night?
No, gratulations.
Oh, gratulations.
Yes.
When I combined the word congratulations and graduation yesterday.
So it's congratulations.
Yes. But Evie Donick graduating from Northeastern University in Boston today.
Yes.
We've heard from the proud dad today. He's very excited.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to catch up with him tomorrow. We will catch up with him tomorrow because he will be back on the program, and we'll see how many times his wife cried. You set the over-under at 10.5, I believe.
What did we
yesterday.
set it? I think it was about 10.
I think 10.5 is like
10.5. Or can I say a continued cry, a consistent cry of either more than 7 minutes or she cries 10 different times throughout the graduation. That's before,
I like
during,
odds.
and after.
I like those odds. Yeah, I think that's a good one.
There we go. I like it.
Well, we have to determine. We did this during the Super Bowl when one of the prop bets we did was, will somebody cry during the national anthem? And Chris Jones had a single tear rolling down his cheek. And I said, that counts.
No, that really doesn't.
If the tear comes out of the eye,
it has to come out of both eyes.
No, I think one is fine.
That's a movie cry. That's like a movie cry. When the one tear come out, that's a movie cry.
There might have been a tear in the other eye. I just remember seeing one during the Super Bowl.
It could have been sweat.
It could have. It was definitely not sweat. But we will catch up with Willie tomorrow. Congratulations to the Donick family. A big day. So one thing I didn't know I loved until this morning, Derek Mason. Crack of dawn trades in the NFL. I was up early this morning, and as I was going through my morning routine, I saw Adam Schefter tweet that the Dallas Cowboys had acquired George Pickens from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cowboys and Steelers agreed to a trade Wednesday that will send Pickens to Dallas for a 2026 third-round pick. The Cowboys will also send a 2027 fifth-round pick to the Steelers and get back a 2027 sixth-round pick. So George Pickens joins the Dallas Cowboys. The Steelers added DK Metcalf during the offseason. I was intrigued by the idea of Pickens and Metcalf with, at the moment, Mason Rudolph throwing them the football. Maybe Aaron Rodgers one day, who knows? But if there was a team, Derek, that was tailor-made for George Pickens, it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Tailor-made in the sense of the drama
that
is going to come with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if it's tailor-made for coexistence to happen, especially if the Dallas Cowboys start losing. And that's what everyone predicts. It's weird how you can be such a good team, but you lose so many games. That's just the craziest thing. Like, Dak Prescott is a damn good quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver in the league. You got some, good, okay backs. You got, an elite defender on the other side of the ball. Matter of fact, 2 really. If Diggs can ever come back from that knee surgery. So you have some players on that team. I know Lawrence is gone now, but you had Lawrence too, one of the other defensive tackles / defensive ends, and you couldn't get as far as the first round of the playoffs. So bring in because what is a malcontent. That
was the word I was just about to use. That's malcontent.
Exactly. That's why Pittsburgh got rid of him. Pittsburgh is not in the business anymore. I think after that whole Antonio Brown saga, I think, and then coupled with this, why do you think they got rid of Dante Johnson? He was another guy that became a malcontent, and they shipped him off very quickly. They just held on to Pickens a little bit longer. Why? Because the talent is there. But make no mistake, man, going to Dallas, in theory, this sounds good because you got one elite receiver and one receiver. If he can just get his act right, he would be an elite receiver. But when you can't get right, you just can't get right. No matter what team you switch, if you don't have that veteran guy, here's the problem with Dallas, I believe. He's going to a team that doesn't seem to have any veteran leadership, that doesn't seem to know that can grab someone and say, hey, listen, this is how it needs to go. Why? You see everybody, the supposed leaders other than the quarterback, they're all talking. They all have some, especially the defensive. He always have something to say. It doesn't matter. So your leaders are the ones that are stirring up some of the stuff. And then you bring another guy that needs leadership, that left one of the best organizations in all of football history, and he goes to Dallas. If this works, if this truly works, then man, oh man, I'm telling you, this would be the best. And I mean, one of the greatest, sort of magic tricks in the world. They can find a way to make Pickens work in an environment that's conducive for chaos.
One texter on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says Pickens never had a good quarterback. Now he does. So I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who the Steelers quarterbacks were over the past 3 years. Obviously, last season, it was Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, but I don't pretend to remember every quarterback who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And I want to listen, it has nothing. It's not like they had, a bunch of bombs, okay? I know they were not great quarterbacks, but they're not a bunch of guys out
Kenny
there.
Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky.
They can't just throw the ball, okay?
Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky in 2022. Mm-hmm. Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky in 2023, and Justin Fields and Russell Wilson last season.
In 2022, he had 800 yards as a rookie, so you expect that. 23, he had 1,100 yards. 24, he dipped down to and had just as many targets, and he dipped down to 900 yards. Listen, it comes a point of time when an elite receiver they're just an elite receiver. No matter who's throwing the ball, just get the ball to me. If you have any worth in you as a quarterback, just get the ball to me. And he hasn't been able to consistently. His problem is consistency. He hadn't been able to consistently go out there and dominate games. He will dominate for a week or two, maybe even 3, and then he will not show up again.
I think he's the definition of a boom or bust.
Yeah,
player.
He's one of those guys
that has these huge games, or he's ineffective.
Exactly. So, and you can't have that from a guy with this type of talent. And it's not just his play, it's his attitude about the whole thing. Well, he causes confusion. And it's not like confusion where nobody else knows about it but the team. Because there are some guys that, they may ruffle a little feathers, but it's all in-house. And it's all, you ruffle some feather with the coach because you want the ball, but you never take it outside of the locker room. You never go to the media. No one ever knows. He's one of those guys that he's going to let you know. And how do you think that's going to work in Big D when they're not winning and they lose at Philadelphia for the second time, or they lose to the Commanders for the second time, or they lose to the Commanders at home? How do you think they're going to feel? How do you think he's going to feel?
I'm just looking at some of his games from last season. He had 7 receptions for 113 yards in a game against the Colts. Followed that up with 3 receptions for 26 yards against the Cowboys, coincidentally. Followed by 3 receptions for 53 yards against the Raiders. Followed by 5 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown against the Jets. So that's my point.
He's a boomer bust guy.
He's a boomer bust guy.
It's not like, because he's the focal point of the passing game, or he was the focal point of the passing game with Pittsburgh. And he still was he didn't show the ability to just stand up and be a number one no matter what the situation was. It was always something else was wrong, or this guy's not. It was too many excuses for a guy with immense talent.
So we will see what happens with George Pickens with the Dallas Cowboys. Get your popcorn ready. I imagine it's going to be quite the show.
It's going to be entertaining, I tell you that.
I was going to use a word I can't use on the air that starts with shh before show, but that's what it's going to be. So, Derek, I want to talk about a craze that's sweeping the nation right now. And no, it's not. No, it's not the bop. It's not chicken jockeying, for those of you who are familiar.
Remember this one? Ork, The Jetsons. The whole craze. Just look that up.
I was thinking when you did that, I was thinking Alvin and the Chipmunks. Ooh, ching, chang, walla walla, bing bang. That's what I was thinking.
No, it was another one on the what did I just say?
The Jetsons.
Yeah. Where it's ork, It was this dance they were doing. It was sweeping the nation.
Oh, man.
But anyway, I'm gonna show it to you.
It's not this Assassin's game that Joe Rexroad talks about on the morning show all the time, which I do not understand. It is way too elaborate. But it's NFL rookies asking to wear retired numbers. We saw it here with Cam Ward and Warren Moon.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it in New York, not once, but twice. Abdul Carter first reached out to Lawrence Taylor, who declined.
Hung up the phone.
Then Phil Simms, who wore number 11 for the New York Giants. Abdul Carter, if I'm not mistaken, wore number 11 at Penn State. Phil Simms said he would be open to allowing Abdul Carter to wear his number, but his family stepped in and told him not to do it. And lucky for us, Phil's son, Chris, is a media personality.
Yeah.
He co-hosts Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio. And on a recent episode, Chris Simms went behind the scenes and shared the process that his father and his family went through, which ultimately led to, I believe, Chris's mom and sister to put the kibosh on this. This is what Chris Simms had to say.
So this is like a rare occasion where a rookie comes in and wants to wear a number. At some point, the team's got to get involved, but I think the team's fine with it because Malik Nabers is wearing a different Nabers, or a different neighbor is wearing a different number. He's wearing number 1 that was retired for Ray Flaherty years ago,
right,
at the permission of his family. So, I think if the team is going to retire numbers, I think they need to be the gatekeeper and avoid these awkward conversations and just say to the players, sorry, it's retired.
Yeah, maybe they've left it, open to the players whose jerseys are retired. So I do respect that. I do. And I think my dad, kind of like went through some of the mental gymnastics of what you were talking about. Like, one, my dad loves the Giants. He's emotionally invested. He really is. He loves Abdul Carter. He got a chance to talk to him after it was all said and done, because, I think my dad originally led Drew Rosenhaus and even Joe Shane to the conclusion that, like, yeah, it's not definite yet, but I'm probably going to give him my number. I don't think he was expecting the blowback from my mom and my sister and maybe the rest of my family to the point of which he got there. And that made him change it. But he was going down that road. And my dad, I know my dad, he wants the best for the Giants. He wants the best for this Abdul Carter. And we know how players are, right? You're a superstitious guy to a degree. I wore this number. I had great success. I wore this number. It may be the number 3 pick in the draft. I'm a superstar because of it. I'd like to keep that mojo going. And I think my dad can understand that as well. So he appreciated that. They got to talk. They hashed it out. My dad really enjoyed the talk, I know, with Abdul Carter and all that. But yeah, as it stands, as we're sitting here now, I don't know what number Abdul Carter is going to go with, but number 11 will stay in the rafters, and it will stay Phil Simms' number. And they probably should put like a little thing underneath it, like Deirdre and Dirty Diana, like save this number or whatever, something like that. But yeah, it was an interesting weekend.
So that was Chris Simms discussing his father's process, the family's process, and ultimately not allowing Phil Simms to give the number 11 to Abdul Carter. And it just feels, I know that it's not isolated to this year, because as Mike Florio and Chris Simms said in that clip, Malik Nabers had number 1 unretired to wear with the Giants, but it just feels like this is happening a lot. And I don't want to sound like some bitter old biddy and say, You need to honor your elders. But I just find it interesting that this seems to be a thing. It's like, so Derek, what is up, Derek, with all of these NFL rookies wanting to wear retired numbers?
I think it's just like anything. You get used to creatures of habits. We all are. And when you get used to something, you don't want to change it, regardless of, as you start to, get older or mature or elevate someone else. And we're just talking about the sports realm. You never think about, well, once I get to the league, somebody else is going to have this number is going to be retired. And you went through, high school, say you had number 11, then you go to college. I don't know if Abdul Carter had number 11 in high school. I'm just assuming. Then you go to college and the number 11 is bestowed upon you. Why? Because they've had great linebackers that have worn that number. And they bestowed it upon you. And then you get into the NFL and you want to keep that number because that's what people see. That's who people see you as. That represents you, that number 11. And, you go into pros and you think, yes, retired, but I still would love that number. It's almost a sense of, I'm not going to say it's disrespect or sometimes it could be just not knowing the history, of that particular team. Not every player knows the history of the NFL. Not every player can name guys 20, 30 years down the line. I guarantee you, I put about 100 of these new cats in the room and start naming players within that organization that drafted you, great players. They'll probably get to a point where they're going maybe 10 years back. That's it. Maybe. So the knowledge of the number sometimes isn't there. Lawrence Taylor's case, everybody in the football world, meaning American football, knows about the number. The number 56 is like one of those. The number 56 is like the number 23. That's when you see 56 on anybody, I think Lawrence Taylor. That's the first thing I think is Lawrence. I don't think nobody, just like, for instance, when I see 52, who do I think?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis is Singletary. Mike Singletary or Ray Lewis, one of those two. Because those numbers are synonymous along the football world with those two individuals. Is number 11 synonymous to Phil Simms? Not really.
Again, he was willing to do it.
Yeah,
Phil Simms was willing to do it. His family.
And I understand from his family
specifically his wife and his daughter.
Because I think my family would probably be hesitant as well, because that is an honor to have your number, to be one of those numbers that no one else can ever wear. That's a true honor. So it's hard sort of giving some people it's hard for them to give that number up or to let someone else, especially if you haven't proven anything. It's hard for someone to give that number up. So, 56, definitely no. 11, it means something to the family, Phil Simms' family. It means something to Phil Simms, but Phil Simms look at it from the standpoint of, this is the New York Giants. This would be me helping the Giants. This would be my way of helping the Giants by potentially giving my number or allowing Abdul Carter to wear the number 11. That's tough. I don't know if they retired 85, I'm not sure, outside of my son, or I would have to have a relationship with you, like we talk, in order for me to bestow that number on you. Because I know what comes with that is a lot of pressure, not necessarily saying mine, but I'm saying when the number's retired.
615-737-1025. What's up with kids these days? No. What is up with all of these NFL rookies asking to wear retired numbers? Where do you stand on this issue? 615-737-1025. A lot of discourse on social media about this over the past several days. I thought some interesting points brought up on both sides. We'll talk about that next. 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you out there to tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on the Norfolk Tides. Pre-game begins at 6:20, and the first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
Here's the thing. In life, all you young players, row your own boat. Make your own legacy. How about you learn to carry a veteran's bag before you take his jersey? This screams of entitlement. It screams for lack of self-awareness. Those jerseys are retired. And it's not like it just, it was a tight end in the 50s. Lawrence Taylor is the greatest New York Giant. And he played, in a franchise with Michael Strahan. Strahan would tell you that's the greatest New York Giant ever. If you didn't get to watch Lawrence Taylor live, the YouTube doesn't do him clips. It was like Mike Tyson in his prime. Mike Tyson scared other heavyweight fighters. Like Lawrence Taylor, people couldn't sleep playing him. He disrupted and Lawrence is, I don't know if he practiced. There were times he showed up literally during jumping jacks and just waded onto the field. Unblockable. Completely unblockable. And you want to see if you can wear his jersey? I don't even know. Like, that drives me nuts.
That was Colin Cowherd talking specifically about Abdul Carter requesting Lawrence Taylor's number. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking about this recent explosion, it feels like, of NFL rookies wanting to wear retired numbers. So you'll recall a couple of weeks ago, Warren Moon, after Cam Ward was drafted number 1 overall, the next day Cam Ward was here for a news conference. Warren Moon surprised him, handed him a Ward number 1 jersey. And this is from the story about that written by Teron Davenport of ESPN.com. Quote, Moon said he was taken aback about a month ago when he received a call from Ward, who asked about the jersey number. Moon said it wasn't the first time he got a call from a Titans player asking for approval to wear number 1. And I believe Teron said that A.J. Brown was among the players who did that. After mulling it over for some time, Moon gave Ward his blessing, but for special reasons. Quote, you start thinking about your legacy and the things that you established when you were playing. You want to make sure those things continue. He, meaning Ward, has a chance to create a legacy for that number, a great legacy for that number, I should say, with this organization, where I did mine with the Houston organization, even though we're all part of the same thing. And Mike Florio, we heard Chris Sims talking about what happened with his dad and Abdul Carter. Mike Florio wrote a piece about this situation, and he writes this, quote, it all leads back to the broader philosophical question related to the retirement of numbers. Typically, the issue arises when an established NFL player who has worn a number with one team goes to another team. For example, Frank Tripucka, his retired number 18 was unretired for Peyton Manning in 2012 when he signed with the Broncos after wearing number 18 for more than a decade with the Colts. When J.J. Watt signed with the Cardinals after wearing 99 for the Texans, Marshall Goldberg's daughter provided her blessing for Goldberg's retired number to be used. Then there was the story of how Steve Largent's number 80 came to be worn by Jerry Rice with the Seahawks. Said Largent after the fact, the team's general manager at the time, Bob Ferguson, quote unquote, kind of conned both of us. It doesn't always go that way. When Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, Joe Namath was willing to let him wear number 12. To his credit, Rodgers said no. Florio continues, the better approach, since there are only so many numbers that 53 and in the preseason up to 90 players can wear, would be not to retire numbers at all. However, if a team is going to retire numbers, the team should honor the obvious terms of the honor. If a number is retired, it's retired. And it's for the team to enforce that, especially since most players for whom a number has been retired will choose to be perceived as magnanimous when asked to allow a number to be reused. That was Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there are certain numbers, and for instance, Peyton Manning going to Denver and being able to wear the number 18. Aaron Rodgers going to Jets, and they were, he was going to give him the number 12.
Namath.
Namath was going to give it to him to wear. But see, this is what I mean about one knowing the history and one knowing the history and not even breaching that conversation, and one person knowing the history but not really truly, I'm not going to say he didn't care, but it's more of, it's just a weird thing that goes on, I think, because Peyton Manning probably, he had earned the right to wear 18. He had proven that he would do that number Right. And what happened?
Same with JJ
exactly.
Watt.
And what happened?
Peyton
they won
Manning
a Super Bowl. JJ Watt, he did the number right. Did they win the Super Bowl? No. But he is a Hall of Fame player. You know, Aaron Rodgers, he didn't wear the number 12, but listen, Joe Namath understood this guy put in some work. This is a 3-time MVP. If he wants to wear the number 12, I'm going to give, because I'm passing. It's almost like I'm passing the torch late so we can try to win a championship. But you don't go and ask for 56. You just don't do that. That's not even a conversation that would come out of my mouth. Like, I wouldn't even ask. I wouldn't even know how to ask for 56. Or if I would have got drafted by San Francisco, I wouldn't have known how to ask for 80, no matter if I was the number 1 pick or not.
For Jerry Rice.
Yeah, for Jerry. I wouldn't have known how to ask for 80 if that number had already been done. Why? Because that number is synonymous. I wouldn't even think about it. I don't think younger players, I'm not going to say all of them, but I think some younger players don't. It's not that they are disrespect. They just don't think about it. They think about, I had number 11 or I had this number in college. Everybody knows me about that number, so I'm going to go to the pros, and that's the number I want. They don't think about, man, that was Lawrence Taylor that wore that number. And I don't understand. I can see in Abdul Carter's case him asking for 11. But why are you asking for 56? That's one I really don't understand, because that wasn't your number in college. It was 11. So wouldn't you go to Phil Simms first and not even go to Lawrence Taylor? I don't understand that one. But listen, these young men, they've been wearing a number their whole life, basically. They did great things in that number prior to coming in the NFL. And, you know, they want to keep sort of that number legacy going. And sometimes that can't be the case because there are teams that have retired numbers. I'm with the article. Like, listen, if either, to me, you have to be like one of ones for me to retire your number. You just have to be like that one of one.
That's why when Colorado announced a few weeks ago that the Buffaloes were retiring Shedeur Sanders' number and Travis Hunter's number, nobody had an issue with Colorado retiring Travis Hunter's number because he won the Heisman Trophy.
Exactly.
And he was outstanding on both sides of the ball. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, yes, I think if you retire too many numbers, it loses its meaning. And I saw this tweet from Mike Sando of The Athletic the other day. He said, quote, once a team retires a jersey number, the team should take the lead in saying that number is not available. Don't put the retired player in the position of having to say yes or no. Then Trevor Sikkema, who works for Pro Football Focus as its lead NFL draft analyst, said this: if a jersey is retired, it's retired. That's it. Completely ridiculous what teams are letting happen with those numbers for the sake of social posts / videos. Legends shouldn't be put in the position to unretire it. And to be honest, no incoming rookie should feel like they can ask for it. In my opinion, it's wildly disrespectful to the commitment, standard, and success that earned that jersey being retired to even entertain a rookie asking for it and the team allowing for the request. What's the point of all of it if you do? Admitting it's shallow and for show. Now, if you're against jerseys being retired altogether, I can understand that. I still like it, but only if the criteria is to a truly high standard. But if you're going to do it, actually do it. The backtracking stinks. That was Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus.
And listen, he has points in there where if you retire a number, there shouldn't be a conversation of bringing it back into existence. It's retired. It's done. It's gone. Nobody has worn that number for so many years, and then all of a sudden, you bend and allow someone else to wear it. Now, listen, it's in these cases, it wasn't up to the teams, and you're right. Maybe it should be up to the teams. Maybe the team should, if you retire a number, that's it. Like, I don't see the NBA doing that. I don't see hockey doing that. I don't see baseball doing that when they retire. I don't see nobody else walking around with a Jackie Robinson 42 on.
There are teams that have specific criteria
Uh-huh.
in order for your number to be retired. And I just typed it quickly into Google. And the first team that came up, and they are not the only team, but it was the first team that came up on Google, the Seattle Mariners.
Mhm.
According to the Seattle Mariners, players aren't eligible to have their number retired until they've been voted on once for the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So I do think that there are teams that say if you are not a Hall of Fame player, you will not have your jersey retired. I do think there are teams with
So
that
they had
criteria.
to have gotten number one votes,
The way I read that is,
or do they have to be in the Hall of Fame?
the way I read this with the Mariners, that players aren't eligible to have their number retired until they've been voted on once for the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, till they be voted on. So
Right.
once you're thrown in, because not everybody, just because you played a long career, not everybody get voted to be a Hall of Famer.
Right. And I believe the only two numbers retired by the Seattle Mariners are Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez, who are deserving of having their numbers retired.
Exactly. So those are like, especially, Ken Griffey, those are one of ones. Like, why would you even put that back in circulation? Now, listen, the Titans, to me, I think there's a little nuance in here. There's a little gray in here because of the
separation.
Exactly. Because of the separation of the organizations, meaning the Houston Oilers and now the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans resemble nothing of the Houston Oilers other than now what they're going to call the Love You or the Houston, what is it? The Tennessee
Love You
Blues.
Blues,
H-Town
H-Town
Blue or whatever
What
it
are they?
is.
That's what they're called. I mean,
think
Titans,
Love You-
they're going to put it in there. They're going to make that their primary color now. But again, hasn't that always been the color that's been in their jersey? That blue color, that light blue color that's in scent. That light blue color, which to me is a Oiler color. That is, it may be a little bit off. I don't know. They may say it's a little bit off, but it looks damn sure like a Oiler color to me. So you still found a way to incorporate the Oiler colors into your new uniforms that will be coming out. And the old ones, frankly, the colors in there. But there's a difference between the two franchises.
615-737-1025. We will get to your reaction on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nashville's best deal of the week is celebrating National Barbecue Month. Get a $50 gift card to Central Barbecue in Capitol View for half off right now. Try their new barbecue sampler, ribs, wings, and barbecue sliders. Go to thegamenashville.com/deals right now while supplies last.
Happy Wednesday, hump day, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to be disappointed. But I got some solutions because my good friends over at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team, understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan talking about NFL rookies asking for retired numbers. Let's go quickly to our text line. Wes in Clarksville says, if I was Ward, I would have picked a number that was unique that no one had before and make that number mine. Let them remember you by that number, not someone else's. Then he adds, they should also retire number 8 from being a quarterback number. It's not been good for those that have worn it lately. So perhaps take number 8 out of circulation for quarterbacks. Andrew from Dover on our text line says, when I was in college playing basketball, any of us that had a major in physical education, we had a class about sports history that should be mandatory for all college athletes. One texter says, history is about to be history. We are living in a world right now where people believe they are the most important person. Like it or hate it, this is the future. Then he also gave you some praise for your Jetson sound that you made earlier in the show. Oh, man. Can you do that again for us?
Eek, ock, ork, I think that was the craze that was going on. In
we'll have David play it at some point during the show. But I remember this. I've referenced this on the show before. A few years ago, the Predators made a 3-team trade with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Ryan Ellis was traded from the Predators to the Flyers. That's how Cody Glass came here. And the Predators also acquired a defenseman named Phil Myers. And later that same day or a few days later, the Predators tweeted out, Phil Myers is going to wear number 6. And people freaked the hell out because who wore number 6 for the Nashville Predators? Shea Weber. And although Shea Weber's number is not yet retired, I imagine it will be at some point. It's sort of like, it's not retired, but if it is essentially retired, you should be taken out of circulation. And it was. Phil Myers ultimately did not wear number 6. No Predators player since Shea Weber was traded has worn number 6. I imagine that the Predators wouldn't allow anybody to wear number 6. But there are people out there, Derek Mason, who feel the same way about Titans players wearing number 85. There are people who think that nobody should wear that number again after you wore it so well for so long. By the way, there are 6 players that have worn the number 85 for the Titans since you gave up that number. Can you name all of them?
Chig, obviously.
Chig is wearing it right now.
Nate Washington, who did a wonderful job at that number.
Nate Washington wore it.
Let me see. There was another tight end that wore it, wasn't it?
Yes. Before Chig.
Yes, it was right before Chig. Gosh, was it not Ferkster?
It was not Anthony Ferkster. It was Michael Pruitt.
Yeah, Michael Pruitt. They gave my number. Oh my
God. let me name you the players who have worn 85.
Beside Nate Washington, like
Greg Gunther.
You can't even pronounce. I don't even know the kid's
Jamie
name.
Petrowski.
Damn,
Nate
Titans.
Washington, Chase Kaufman, Michael Pruitt, and Chiga Conquo.
Can y'all be judicial when y'all give out? I'm not saying retire it, but can y'all be? Can y'all just be like not true? Can y'all be selective of who y'all get? Like, I'm not saying it needs to be retired, even though that would be great. But can y'all at least give it to somebody that you know that's worth the damn? Like on a playing field, that's worth the damn. Like somebody like Nate Washington, give it to somebody like Nate Washington that has proven themselves.
You hear that, Chig?
And I love Chig. Listen, the talent is there. I have not, move away from Chig completely. But Chig, you gotta start showing something, man. You're wearing that 85, bro. You go look at some tape of me in that 85. You'll see some really great things. So you got to start picking it up. Watch Nate Washington number 85. You'll see some really great things. So if you're gonna wear that number, you gotta start coming up, brother. You're doing myself and Nate Washington wrong, man. You're doing us wrong. You're making the number look dirty, man. You ain't, and you're a damn good player. At least I think so.
Larry,
if I asked Jared that, he wouldn't think so.
No.
But I think you're a damn good player, man. You got to represent that 85. Titans. If Chig doesn't get it right, I am asking you, please, for the love of God, for the love of Nate Washington and myself, be selective who you're going to give that 85 to. Just who's the equipment? Joey. I know you, Joey. We go way back. Joey. Just be selective about the 85 if it doesn't work out for Chig. Please be selective. Don't you be willy-nilly throwing that out there. Y'all ain't willing. Who is anybody wearing 53 or another Titan? I see 53 is Bullock a Titan great. Damn sure ain't nobody wearing 89. I know that. They bet not be. Is somebody wearing 23? Like, if you don't give it to somebody wearing 20, he better be a dog like Blaine. You got to be selective with certain numbers, man. Don't just be giving it willy-nilly to everybody. I'm sorry I'm hitting the mic. I didn't mean to get this riled up.
Larry is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Larry, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
It was your fault, Adam.
Yes, it was.
Man, how do I follow Derek Mason?
You can't, but you'll have to try.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm a huge Cubs fan. The Cubs, a few years back, they retired Greg Max and Ferguson Jenkins, number 31, a few years back. But my thoughts on the Warren Moon, Cam Ward thing, here's the deal. Warren Moon did not play a single snap in Tennessee. So I really don't have a problem with Cam Ward getting that number 1 jersey.
Thank you for the call, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, see, that's, and I think the people that have probably, are really like those that really followed the Oilers, and that because there are still some out there that follow the Oilers that are huge Titan fans, and they look at it a certain way. But I think, guys like Larry or, other people that are just Tennessee Titan fans, they don't look at it the way that Houston fans do. They look at it as, this is a new this is a different franchise. It's the number 1. Let him make a name for himself. So I don't have a problem with it. If Warren said it was good, it was good. I don't have a problem with it. Mainly because it's not the Houston Oilers, it's the Tennessee Titans. But for the love of football, Tennessee Titans, be selective with 85, 53, and 23.
Care to guess how many players have worn 53 since Keith Bullock?
Who?
For the Titans?
And the names better be better. I swear.
They're not.
There's a rookie wearing the 53 right now.
12 players.
Oh my goodness. Wow. 12 players.
The only player. Okay, let's see. Oh man. All right. So these are the 12 players who have worn 53 since Keith Bullock.
A Titan great.
Yes. Left that number behind. God, I don't know any of these people. Some of them.
Name them, please.
Rennie Curran. Zach Dials. Is it Moise?
Yeah, whatever you want to say.
Moise Foku?
Moise Foku, yeah. We'll take that.
Foku, that's something that Derek Mason is saying to that player for taking.
We are sorry if we butchered your name. We are sorry.
Quentin Groves. Wow. DeAndres Mount. Wow. Darren Bates. Wow. Will Compton.
Okay,
famous podcaster.
Yeah.
Avery Williamson.
I liked Avery, but he
Dylan
was
Cole,
near,
Tay Crowder, Ernest Jones, and Curtis Bolton.
Wow. Hey, Bullet, man, yours worse than mine.
There's someone wearing 89 right now.
Is somebody wearing 89?
Thomas Odukoya?
You know what? That's a damn shame. It truly is. And now, are you serious about that?
Dead serious. I just looked at it.
And there are 10 players who have worn 23 since Blaine Bishop.
Okay, because I really didn't know that 89 was like people were still wearing it. Frankie was my dude. I didn't talk to him much, and I don't really think a lot of people. I didn't talk to him as much after retirement. One because I was in Baltimore, and then once I got back here, he was in transition and to move out and stuff. So, but I would check on him every once in a while. But he's always been like Frankie has always been that dude that like no matter what, like I ain't, you don't say a bad thing about Frankie. Why are they letting anyone wear that number? That's my thing. Why? Again, be selective when you give that number out. That's an organization. Is that an organization? Or is this an organization, that is truly forgetting where it all started? I understand no one bet I ever wear 27 and 9. I get that. No one ever. But 89's right there. He is. He helped carry that team for a good while. Hell, he was the only weapon we had in the passing game, the reliable one. You can always count on that dude, no matter what. He put his body through hell. And y'all got somebody else wearing his number?
The only player of note, and I use that term loosely.
I hope it's this, because some teams do, like, because there's not enough numbers out there that during during preseason or camp, they'll let you wear the number. And then once you get in the season, they take the number from you because obviously there's not, that many people on the roster anymore. So I believe that's what's going to happen. I hope that's what's going to happen. So if indeed that's going to happen, excuse me, Tennessee Titans, for getting that upset. But if somebody's wearing 89 during the season, yeah, I'm going to ramp it right back up, and I'm going to ramp it up every day. Somehow, some way, I am going to mention it every day, because I think like 27-9, that number, 89, should be one of those numbers for this organization.
There have been 8 players
set aside for no one else should wear that number. No one else.
8 players have worn 89 since Frank Wycheck. The only player of note, and I use that word loosely, is Jared Cook wore it for a few years.
And again, if you're going to do it, be selective. Don't just give it to the first guy and you just hand it to him. Oh, here's a number. Because when you hand that number, especially some of the people that are still in that bit, when you hand that number, you know what that number is. You know when you're looking at it, because the colors ain't changed that much.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on this. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us for a couple of segments. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace Fingen and Donick 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, soon to be joined by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. My bad, Derek. I didn't mean to get you so riled up. I didn't think I struck a nerve there, but
well, it didn't until I sort of realized that they have let guys wear that jersey. And again, just be selective with certain things. Like when you start naming the names, I'm like, man, y'all hadn't been very selective with individuals. Gosh, I just don't get it. But then, the Frank thing, and I understand there may be other stuff involved. I get that part. But when I think of 89, I think of, this franchise wouldn't have been, he was one of those guys that helped, usher in this new franchise to a new city and helped us. He was a critical part of the success that we had. That especially that 99 season. Hell, he was the linchpin to the home run throwback. Come on, you can't just be
the Music City Miracle.
Yeah, Music City Miracle. You can't just be, handing that number out all willy-nilly. Just be selective,
I hear you. I hear you.
Selective. And no one has proven they are worthy to wear that number. They just hadn't up until this point.
Yeah, I do think, and Bob from Mount Juliet with the contrarian approach says it's okay to have someone wear a retired number for a player in the Hall, but we have to complain about giving out numbers to non-retired. Hold on, Bob. Let me start that again. So it's okay to have someone wear a retired number for a player in the Hall, but we have to complain about giving out numbers to non-retired numbers that didn't get in the Hall.
This is two different. This is not the same franchise. That number for the Houston Oilers, I think, will always be retired. That number one, that jersey number, that color, those names will never be in circulation again. And if we still were the Houston Oilers, I think there would have been a bigger outcry. That matter of fact, they probably wouldn't have given it to him. But because it's not, it's a little bit easier, I believe, to stomach. And Warren said it was okay. Listen, Frankie, if you've been around here long enough, since 1997, you know what Frank meant to this organization especially in those early years. You don't have to retire. Eddie and Steve are not in the Hall of Fame. They should be, but they're not. And their numbers are retired and no one will dare put on a number 27 or number 9 again. I hope they don't. I just think Frankie's one of those guys that, when you start talking about Eddie and Steve, you need to start talking about Frankie and Blaine. Those are the guys, B-Hop. I'm just saying, just be selective when you give that number out, because there are people that still work there, I'm sure, in that equipment room that have been there since this organization came, that understands what that number 89 is. Again, I don't know all of everything that sort of went down during that time, but just I would hope that they would be more selective when giving out, a 89 or a 23 or 53.
And I understand that in football versus hockey, there are a lot more players, especially during training camp when there are upwards of 90 players, and there are only so many numbers to go around. And if I'm not mistaken, sometimes multiple players wear the same number in training camp, just because there, again, are only so many numbers. So I understand it's more difficult in football to take numbers out of circulation than it is in hockey. For example, as I mentioned in the previous hour, this was before Shea Weber was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was still an active player, I think. Well, he might have been on long-term injured reserve. He wasn't formally retired, I don't think. But the outcry was so big from Predators fans about another player wearing number 6 that they ultimately pivoted, and Phil Myers wore a different number. And I just went back through the history of Predators numbers. Of course, the Predators only have one number retired so far. That's Pecorine, number 35. Shea Weber will join him, I'm sure, sooner rather than later. But even like I looked up the number 12. Mike Fisher wore the number 12 for several years, captain of the Nashville Predators, big part of this community. The Predators have allowed 2 players to wear number 12 since Mike Fisher retired the second time, because remember, he did come back briefly from retirement. And it's easier to take numbers out of circulation in hockey because there are fewer players on the team. But it is an interesting debate. Like I generally side on when it comes to the retired number thing. I generally side on the idea that, like Mike Sando said, like Trevor Sikkema said, if the number is retired, it needs to be retired. That's my point. So, but when it comes to certain numbers being taken out of circulation, they aren't formally retired, but they are effectively retired. I do think that teams should be judicious handing out numbers that aren't officially retired, but mean something to the organization. So that's where
he's in your ring of honor. Frankie, he's in your ring of honor. And that means a lot, a whole hell of a lot. He's in your ring of honor. So I'm just saying, just be more selective. And when you're handing out that number, let the guy, it's almost like, okay, first round pick. Okay, got some talent. Okay, we say, okay, yo, let's try it. But I'm not just giving it to anybody. Like, oh, here, free agent here, other guy. You can just have, they brought you in for, they brought you in, signed to, a 10-day contract. You don't do that. You do that in basketball, not NFL. But essentially, it is a 10-day contract, because what they do is they sign you, and then they cut you the next week. So essentially, it's a 10-day contract. Don't give a guy like that number 89.
So Cam Ward will wear number 1 for the Tennessee Titans, because Warren Moon gave him his blessing to wear that number. And earlier this week, Derek, we were talking about the success of rookie quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall. And I just looked at their win-loss records. But you brought up something that you think is vital to the success of a rookie quarterback, regardless of where that rookie quarterback is selected, and that is a defense. And Teron Davenport wrote a story for ESPN.com recently looking at some of the questions that the Titans still face after drafting Cam Ward. One of the questions is, who steps up? Actually, that's not the question. Did the Titans address pass rusher sufficiently? The other question is, who steps up at inside linebacker, which is involved in the defense, obviously. But this is what Teron Davenport writes about the pass rusher scenario. Quote, ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reed mentioned Femi Oladejo, as one of the pass rushers who could make an immediate impact after a solid showing during practices at the Senior Bowl in January. Oladejo has shown traits to rush the passer. Easy for me to say, geez. But he is relatively inexperienced as an outside linebacker. He played most of his college career at inside linebacker before moving to outside backer midway through his senior season. Releasing outside linebacker Harold Landry leaves a void, though. Landry had 31.5 sacks over the last 3 seasons, and the Titans currently don't have a player who has recorded double-digit sacks in a season. The outside pass rusher rotation will consist of veterans Arden Key, Ali Gay, and Jalen Harrell. Free agent additions Draymond Jones and Lorenzo Carter and Oladejo. The Titans do have the luxury of getting added pressure from the interior of the line with Pro Bowl defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons and 2024 second-round pick T'Vondre Sweat. So it's not just limited to the pass rusher position. Again, we mentioned the inside linebacker position as well. Teron Davenport writes, quote, the Titans signed free agent Cody Barton to give the inside linebacker position a veteran in the room. Barton posted over 100 tackles in each of the last 3 seasons with the Broncos, Commanders, and Seahawks, respectively. He will be one of the starters. The other inside linebacker position will come down to a competition among a group of young players looking to break through. Third-year linebacker Otis Reese will be in a battle with 2024 draft pick Cedric Gray and James Williams. Collectively, the young trio played 244 defensive snaps last season, with 109 of them coming from Williams. That number will need to increase dramatically this year. So a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball. So there isn't much more they can do to shore up this position. Free agency is over. The draft is over. Maybe a veteran shakes loose during training camp. Teron mentioned Zadarius Smith as a player who is still available. But Derek, do you see a defense on paper right now that can help Cam Ward this season?
I'm not sure. I'm really not. Obviously, you look at the two big fellas in the middle, Sweat and Simmons, and they, I believe, they will be a dominating duel this year. Sweat's second year, I think he's going to learn. He's learned a lot. I think he's going to be in better football shape. Not to say he wasn't in good shape last year, but that second year of just a full year to work out and not train for a combine or not train to do certain drill specific things. No, you are working as an NFL player now. So your off season is a little bit different. So I expect T'Vondre Sweat to come back even better, which will make that defensive line a lot better. I hate to see teams try to run on them this season, if indeed they play up to the standard.
Jeffrey Simmons did say that during the season. Nobody runs on the Tennessee Titans. And it was the Indianapolis Colts who had about 500 rushing yards, give or take,
so
in the following game.
I think this second season will be a lot better. But when I look at teams with young quarterbacks, and I only go based upon my experience, is the Baltimore Ravens drafted Joe Flacco in 2008.
And we're going to talk about that later.
But I'm just going to give you just a brief thing. They drafted him in 2008. He wasn't supposed to be the starter. Troy gets hurt. I mean, Troy gets deathly sick, like truly deathly sick. He was in the hospital, lost a bunch of weight.
A serious tonsil infection for Troy Smith.
So Joe ended up being the starter.
And Kyle Bowler was hurt too.
Kyle Bowler was hurt. Steve had just retired. So he was it. It was it for him. He was the guy. And the one thing that I truly believed helped Joe Flacco is our defense. You know how many points we gave up that year?
How many?
On our way to having I think 12-5 season, they'll give up 11 points per game.
Pretty
11 points per game. You know how many times Joe Flacco threw over 200 yards? 5 times. He threw over 2 yards.
And he started every game, right?
And he started every game. He only threw over 200 yards 5 times. We ran the football.
You had Ray Rice, right?
Ray Rice and we had Willis McGahee, Ray Rice, and LaRon McClain. Now, LaRon McClain and Willis McGahee had just come off 1,000-yard seasons.
Ray Rice was drafted that same year, right?
Ray Rice was drafted. Yeah. They both were 1,000-yard rushers. Or I think McClain might have been 900, but I think McGahee was 1,000, or was close to it. But we had a hell of a backfield. And then you add in a Ray Rice, who was one of those guys that changes an offense instantly because of what he can do, not just running the football, but catching the football. He was a hell of a pass catcher out the backfield out of Rutgers. So you get him a great running game, you get him an offensive line, you get him a defense, and you get him guys that are consistent at catching the football and making plays when you need them to make it. And we went 12-5 that year. Not necessarily because the quarterback played great, because we didn't have to put the quarterback in a position where he had to go out there and throw for 400 or 500 yards or score 35 points every other week. No, our defense only gave up 11.6 points per game. That helps out the quarterback immensely. That's what the Titans, we talk so much about the offense, and I understand that. I talked a lot about it, getting the offensive line shored up, getting some more playmakers. That needs to happen. But if that does come to fruition, that they do play well, if you ain't got no defense, now what we're doing, we're asking Cam to win every game, and that's unfair. You help a rookie quarterback out by getting you a defense that is going to be one of the tops, at least in scoring defense or points given up, one of the top defenses in the National Football League. If the Titans give up only 15 points per game, this is a team I believe will win 8 games, maybe even 9 games. If they give up, let's say, if they give up 17 or less, this will be a much better team than what we saw last year.
There are just a lot of question marks.
Unless the quarterback just bombs out, which I don't think he will.
There are a lot of question marks. The relative inexperience at inside linebacker, as Teron Davenport mentioned. what the fate of L'Jarius Sneed is with the issue with the law that we talked about a few weeks ago.
The depth of the roster on defense.
Right. They bring in Xavier Woods. You have Jarvis Brownlee in his second season, Roger McCreary, Amani Hooker, rushing the passer, Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day. There are just a lot of question marks about this defense. And remember, for a lot of last season, the Titans had, quote unquote, the number one defense in terms of yards allowed. But I think it was because they were playing on a lot of short fields because Will Levis was turning the ball over. It was a bit misleading, their ranking in that area. But I completely understand your point. And I'm curious to see if there are any veteran players who become available throughout the summer who can help the Titans on defense. 615-737-1025. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us coming up next. 615-737-1025. The 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament benefiting Folds of Honor presented by Gary Force Acura at Hermitage Golf Course is Thursday, May 29th. That's 3 weeks from tomorrow. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined as we are every Wednesday by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on Outkick. Hello, Hutton. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys?
We are doing
good.
well. I riled Derek up on accident, talking about numbers that were not taken out of circulation.
Or at least numbers they should have been really selective in handing back out.
Chig Okonkwo was on notice for wearing number 85.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just put it to you that way.
It wasn't. It's not even that really, Hut. It's the names outside of Nate Washington. The names that have donned the 85 isn't a good list.
No, it's not.
Mace, do you think players today know as much about the history
No.
of the organization they're playing for
No.
as you did?
No, they don't.
Why not?
Because
Why don't-
because it's not about that with them. It's truly not. And
But it can hang on. It can be about that with the organization they play for.
yeah, you're right. It can be, but I don't think these kids, these young people, are not kids. They're not kids anymore. These young people, I don't think they put in enough time to want to know about the organizations that they potentially will be drafted by. They're not looking at the history and the past players and all that stuff. They don't want to know. They don't. They can walk through the building and not know anything outside of what they see on the walls. They don't. And it's like you said, it's really sad in a sense, because when you walk through that, when I came into Houston Oilers, I knew I could name, rattle off those guys that played. I could, because I sat and I watched, and the history of you, even though they were not in Detroit, I watched them play, and I understood the history of football in general, especially when it comes to players. I don't think these young men look at it that way anymore.
The last coach that the Titans had who gave a damn about that was Mike Munchak.
Yes.
And he put that Oilers mural up in the locker room. You remember this?
Yeah.
Ken Wisselman came in and painted over that pretty fast. And that's the last of the history of the Tennessee Oilers and anything else to do in that building, like specifically with the players I'm talking about. The players would pass it every day. That was it. Like it was, now it's a slogan, I'm sure, which all teams are doing that, whatever it might be, play tough or whatever. But, Vrabel's not coming in and knowing the history of the team that way, nor should he, right? But
no.
Munchak knew it and made it a purpose. And I think that's probably the last time. That's around Nate Washington's last few years, wasn't it?
I think so.
That's probably the last time that group knew anything about the history of the team and where they came from.
It's just outside of the names everybody know. Steve, Eddie,
you,
Frankie. No, not even me. Steve, Eddie, Frank, Javon, maybe Bullock. You ask those young guys in there, go down a list of great players that just wore Titan uniforms.
Let me give you an example.
They couldn't go past. The first people they would say obviously is Steve and Eddie. Then they said Derrick Henry, and then they may get to Frank or Javon. Then it'd be, but other than that, they don't. And this is where, and they may not like me over here after this one. But it's not like I'm like about to go off on them, but this is my truth and only mine. Outside of those few names, the organization doesn't tell a story of the 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004 teams. They don't, outside of a few players. So when these young guys come in, that's all they see. They don't know about a Blaine Bishop. They don't know about a Derek Mason. They don't know about a Brad Hopkins. They don't know about these guys that were trenched in this organization that were ballers, like legit ballers. They don't know anybody, and that's the organization's fault. I do blame that on them.
Well, and it's the culture again. Like it's the young franchise, right? Where we remember all the names, but you know who we're leaving. Like Mace, you're one of the. I mean, they're one of the few wide receivers this franchise has had. Okay, let's just say it like that. Like you are.
Besides myself and AJ Brown. Okay. I'm like, and Nate, because he put up some damn good years when he was here, but he came from another organization. We're talking about people that were drafted by the Tigers.
Let's go. Well, even guys that they came in and renovate, like they totally rehauled and overhauled who they were. Let's mention Kyle Vanden Bosch. When's the last time that guy's name's been mentioned in this franchise?
You're right.
He set the tone at practice every day. That's whenever I was starting out.
But he was a dog on the field too,
dude. Yes, I mean, again, like there's more. There's even layers to it. And I think that's also where the franchise has to go, Mace, is I see numbers now, and I still think about your era. No, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Yes. They have to establish the next stars. They haven't done that. I mean,
no,
we think
you're
about
right.
Number 10, and we think about not getting it done at quarterback. You know, like now we think about number 1. We're going to see Warren Moon through that number, but that's like the next. That's the not just the goal. That's the demand of what they're doing with Cam Ward. They have to establish the next line of last names on a jersey, because I can't tell you the last time that I've seen anybody clamor for a jersey, like in the promotion of it.
Because my thing is they need to be more selective.
That comes with the territory of drafting offensive linemen in the first round too. Like that doesn't help the star power, but I mean, that's the goal, is establishing these guys with the number. They just haven't done it. And they also haven't been, it's not like Chigakonkwo is going to live up to 85.
I only remember, I'm sorry, I'm going to give it a pass. I only remember 2 numbers at the wide receiver position. That's my number and A.J. Brown's number. I'm talking about numbers like, okay, the 11 and an 85. You don't think about any other. You see what I'm saying? You don't think
87 with Dyson
and 87 with Dyson. So it's 85, 87, and 11. If you want to throw Drew in there, because he had a hell of a year that one year, and he was a productive receiver. Not so much so after I left, but he was productive while I was here. Guys like that, they just don't. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's sour grapes. I don't know. And I can't admit that. I'm not too proud to say, hey, sometimes I've been a little butthurt, but that's just me. That's just me. I'm not too proud to say I haven't been at times. But maybe it's just me in this time. And this is one of the moments. Maybe
I'm okay. I'm okay with a little pettiness, Derek. It's okay. I think everybody.
But I will admit it. I will admit it.
Go ahead.
Let's say a rookie, Mace. You're playing nowadays. You're playing today. A rookie calls you up and wants 85. What are you responding with?
You got to earn it.
I mean,
that flat out. You got to earn it.
Call me back in a couple of years.
Yeah, call me back. A matter of fact, just call if you have a damn good. Call me back after the season and see where I'm at. Because I know after a while you get used to your number and you just keep it. But my thing is, no, you haven't earned it yet, young man.
I agree with you.
Hutton,
good job, Adam.
I'm learning every day. Hutton, usually we don't rely on the Wall Street Journal to break sports news, but the Wall Street Journal broke a story a few days ago. The Trump administration is considering an executive order that could increase scrutiny of the explosion in payments to college athletes since 2021 after the president met with former Alabama coach Nick Saban. Trump met with Saban after Trump delivered the University of Alabama's commencement address. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump said he agreed with Saban and would look at crafting an executive order. People familiar with the meeting said Trump told aides to begin studying what an order could say, the people said. Because Saban talked about NIL deals with Trump, telling the president how he believed the influx of money had damaged college sports. How do you feel about Nick Saban having this conversation and trying to spur on this executive order?
I love it. I mean, it's what has to, it's what needed and was required to happen, is Nick Saban be at some level of leadership in this. He's already, if you think about it, he's already kind of the de facto commissioner of college football, because he sits on College Game Day and he's asked these questions every single week. Anything controversial or anything that's going to be about the business side or the coaching side, we want Saban's opinion. So that his voice carries a lot of weight. By President Trump going and meeting with Saban, that tells me moving forward, he will be involved. Saban will be involved, because I think Trump would then lean on him and include him in this process. And this is the same guy that said, you're going to need a lawyer. You're not going to want really a coach. I have to have a coach or someone that knows ball in these talks. The next stage of this would be the players need to be represented. That hasn't happened really at any stage of this. Football players, I'm saying, not student athletes, as they're having represented on Capitol Hill. I don't need a swimmer representing a football player. All I'm saying that there are levels to it. I think the overall governing body has to be established through some type of legislation that has states equal on an equal playing field, because right now it's just state law to state law, and whatever Tennessee allows and what Texas allows versus what Illinois can allow. That's where it all started in 2021. That's where it really got awry, and it got out of hand, and lawsuits started happening. So I think we have to have some order to it, but the only order that's going to require anyone to pay attention to, okay, here are the guidelines. It's going to come from the very top, and it's the federal government in some way. And it's going to come through Saban. I mean, if you think about the voices of college football, he's someone I want speaking on my behalf if I'm college football.
There's a graph in this story in the Wall Street Journal that says, quote, Saban didn't propose ending NIL, but reforming it, according to a person with direct knowledge of the meeting. He described how it was causing an uneven playing field, the people said, with an arms race among powerhouse schools.
The height of the hypocrisy.
I was about to say, critics of Nick Saban,
hypocrisy.
Hutton would say, Nick Saban benefited greatly from there being an uneven playing field.
Okay, so it's yes, it's hypocritical, but it's also, I hear that and I think reform. He's also speaking on the players' behalf and saying that, because he's old school. I don't think he likes where college football went, but do players deserve to be played? Yes. I'm looking at this going, the NIL, the heart of NIL is a good thing. If someone at Michigan State's wearing 85 and they're selling 85 jerseys, I'm just saying, like D Mace made, you see what I'm saying? Like
okay.
There needs to be a number. Like Peyton Manning was wearing 16 in college, and I see a lot of 16 Tennessee jerseys
still to this day. Exactly, and they're making money.
I get that, but like at the end of the day, there is still the haves and the have-nots, and you got Texas paying $50 million or whatever it is. For their $30 million, excuse me, $25 to $30 million on a roster. And there's no way that more than 5 to 7 let's just cap it at 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more than 10 programs across the country that can do what Texas is doing? I say less than that. So it's still about the haves and the have-nots. But if there are guardrails and some guidelines to follow, that's a great thing. Now, who's enforcing them? It's got to be more than the NCAA, because the NCAA is still trying to figure out if Connor Stallions was stealing signs.
Yeah, this is, to me, listen, Saban is a great coach. He will always be considered the greatest college coach and probably the second greatest football coach, or third greatest, however you want to label it. But this is just it's hypocrisy at its finest. They had opportunities to take care of this. Okay, the only way you're going to take care of this if you collectively bargain it. I don't need the government to get in sports.
Right.
Okay, everybody now all of a sudden we want government in sports, where it's like, oh, stay out of it. The government doesn't need to be here. No, but now you want them involved. I don't want government anywhere near this, because government wasn't near when these universities were making money hand over fist from these sports teams, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball. No one was coming in and saying, hey, we need to regulate how much these ADs and these presidents and these head coaches are making. Let's make sure the playing field stays level, so Alabama doesn't have the ability to pay Nick Saban $9 million, whereas the University of Cal can't pay a coach $9 million, so they're not going to get the best coach. Let's start there. I didn't hear any, let's legislate that, out of college football. But all of a sudden, now that these men and women, young men and women, are making money hand over fist, I get it. All of the movement, that is driving me crazy. Guys and girls transferring. But it's your fault. So don't sit here and now try to bring the government in a divisive, and not just the government, you're bringing in a divisive individual.
Hutton, hold that thought. We will go to break. 615-737-1025. I had him going again. 615-737-1025. Hutton, will allow you to respond to that on the other side. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace, Van Gendonic, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, joined by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow on Outkick. We were discussing a report from the Wall Street Journal earlier this week, over the weekend maybe, about Nick Saban discussing with President Trump an executive order that could help address payments to college athletes. Hutton, I will allow.
And I'm not riled up at you, Hutton.
I know, but I will allow. I will allow Hutton.
You can be. You
Yeah.
can be. It's fine.
I want to read to you, Hutton, a column from Blake Totmeyer of USA Today Network, and I want to get your response. And you can also respond to Derek. Quote: Nick Saban thinks college football needs to be fixed, and that the federal government should become involved in the fixing. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama shares that belief, and he warns that the sport is, quote unquote, in danger. In danger of what exactly? Also, how and why should the federal government be involved in fixing college football's problems in so much as they exist? And goodness me, why should President Donald Trump insert himself into this situation? I've heard few coherent solutions from Saban or Tuberville. Mostly, I hear complaints from two retired coaches pining for the good old days when coaches enjoyed omnipotence and ruled like kings, while athletes enjoyed fewer freedoms and less compensation. Blake Totmeyer continues. Again, I ask, why should Trump be involved? How would an executive order lawfully and effectively improve college football? Why should the president restrict athlete movement or place regulations on college athletics' unfettered name, image, and likeness marketplace that state legislation and the court system unlocked? How would uncorking a presidential bailout for the NCAA, an unpopular organization, amount to good politics?
Well, I in general, I asked those same questions, especially about Senator Tuberville, because he's already presented and co-authored bills that have been on the floor. Now, representing that, if you read through it, it is a lot about going back to what it was and the guidelines. I think that's my fear is not legislation about federal government getting a piece of the pie or whatever we fear there, or non-football people doing football things, whatever. I think it's more about just going back to the way it was, which is not going to be sufficient in this. Look, President Trump, like him or don't, I think he does over his history. He can get some deals done. He gets people together, and he's making a commencement speech at the graduation speech at Alabama that has him chatting with Nick Saban. So I like the fact that Saban is in a way a face of this just as well as President Trump. Federal government doesn't have to make a law about this. I think it can be, again, I go back to guardrails. The players need to be employees. That's how you get to a collective bargaining agreement. Right now, there's nothing of the sense. And there need to be contracts. There were over 3,000 players that entered the portal in college that now play for a different team over the last year, 3,000 plus. So with that in mind, and there's no contract, so you just do it again next year. Nico can transfer next year if he wants to from UCLA. So that's the difference between everyone who compares it to the NFL. It's not the NFL, because in the NFL you have a collective bargaining agreement, a CBA with contracts, and if you don't like the team you're on, demand a trade, or you have to honor it in some way, at least from the player's side. From the school side, I mean, again, with or without it, you're always going to have the haves of the have-nots. But with the structure we have right now, Texas is loading up ahead of whatever cap could possibly be coming. They're loading up on their roster now because there's no order in this, and they know they're one of the very, very few that can go out and try to buy a roster around Arch Manning, who's not receiving any of the collective money. So whatever we want to call it, someone's got to lead it, and it's not going to be the NCAA, and it's not going to be just a random Joe like me in Nashville shouting that Nick Saban needs to lead things. It's got to come from the top, or it's just not going to happen. And if the players want to be represented, I think this is the best route to do it, because right now, yes, the very top 1% are making a lot of money. But if you start looking around, I mean, the players themselves are not, and it just have to be football. It can be across the board. There's a reason why universities don't want to have employees in all this. There's a reason why they don't want to have a collective bargaining agreement, because right now, if you really look at the funds going into the university, what's the real percentage of the money that actually goes to the player? How is that money going to the university and then getting to the player? And who's negotiating those contracts? If it's going through the university, then represented by the quarterback, for instance. I don't really know the funnel system there. This would solve that. I think it actually benefits the player more to have representation. And right now, there's no one speaking on their behalf. There's no former player I'm pointing to the way I could point to say.
Well, there should just be a collective bargaining. That's what it should be, because that's what ultimately we're coming up on. And again, you run the country. Find a way to run the country, okay? Work deals to run the country. Don't try to work deals to run college sports. That's not your realm. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask a mechanic to fix my plumbing. I'm just not going to do it. I don't need the government trying to fix college football. College football is broken because you broke it, not the government. The government work on the country.
Well,
let Saban get a team together.
If he's speaking on behalf of the people, how many of the people would want college football to get back to something of order?
It's capitalism. Don't complain about it now. Don't complain about it now. It's capitalism.
Saying, like, how do you represent such a large group that is the student athlete? I'm saying student athlete in jest.
But this is not. This is not about.
That's the NCAA. The NCAA is still saying student athlete.
Exactly. But what this is not about. This is not about everybody. This is not about the country. When the president gets involved, it's about the country. This has nothing to do with the country. It really doesn't. This has to do with universities, and more importantly, this has to do with athletes. Whether you want to call them student athletes, I call them athletic students. People that's going to college, getting a degree, but they're there to work in their athletic realm. That's what they're there to do. But my thing is, let the college people figure out the college stuff. You figure out the other stuff for the country. I don't want.
If it's not going to be from the top, it's going to be from Disney and ESPN.
No. But my thing is, listen, the government isn't the top. They're not the top. We're talking about sports. We're talking about
a bill and a law passed. An executive order is just getting things done.
He don't need to. No, I don't. I don't want his name. Just like I wouldn't have wanted Biden's name. Just like I wouldn't have wanted Obama's name. Or Bush's name. I don't want them attached to college sports in no way, because it becomes a political football then. And then once it becomes a political football, it becomes even more division. I don't want that. Keep that. They for years, shut up and dribble, catch the ball and dribble. But now all of a sudden, bring the government in now. No, stay out.
But the government's always been there. There have been multiple bills. There have been over 12.
I understand that.
Hill about this.
No, I get that part. But when you try to come in and say, well, let's legislate the money that is being paid. Okay, while we're at it, legislate the money that is being paid to these coaches. All right, if we want to do that, then there's a cap on the coaches and there's a cap on the players. You know who would go for that? Nobody.
Okay, but see, when I say the government's always been there, it's already right now it's state to state.
So
it's the government deciding that. Like the state of Tennessee sued the NCAA on behalf of Nico. So it's still, the government's already involved at a big level. It's just like if Kansas doesn't want to do it, but Tennessee does, then you benefit across the state of Tennessee as being NIL that's going to be able to pay you more, or from the sense of the NCAA has no power in the state of Tennessee. They've got more governance over Kansas. If Kansas doesn't want to step up and attack the NCAA and have the Commonwealth of Virginia jump on board with that too. Like that's already been there. This is just more. It depends on how you look at it. Do you want the government overseeing all the states and having some type of order?
I want no. I want college
to be state to state.
I
and just
want
have
college.
Every state decide if they want to do it.
I want college sports. Whoever's at the top, get up off their asses and do what they need to do to correct this. They don't need to be trying to go get Big Brother to say, "Oh, let's please correct this for." No, y'all again. I go back to it. Y'all had opportunities to take care of this. We all saw it coming down. Everybody saw it.
They lost. It was a unanimous vote in the Supreme Court that got this going.
Exactly.
And the NCAA, any semblance, any threat of a lawsuit, and they're out. They're afraid of being of a lawsuit at every corner because the Supreme Court in that ruling said there are other issues in litigation that could come up with this where you're probably going to fail.
So once again, we want to bypass
back and said, or make order on your own.
So now we want to bypass what the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court says, okay, let these young men and women They should be able to get paid. They should be able to monetize,
Right.
whatever. The court said that. Now we want to shift to the president and say, hey, president, try to clean up this stuff because the Supreme Court gave the okay, which they should have. But now it's like, oh, let's go. We didn't really like what the Supreme Court said. Let's go to the president.
Well,
regardless
so,
of who the president, listen, regardless of who the president is.
Figured out. So, but hear me out.
Mhm.
I'm not saying whatever plan he comes up with, I'm going to be on board with.
Exactly.
Whatever comes is. I'm just saying, thank God someone's trying something.
What's that?
So, like, if they want to get, because again, like there have been bills that have been proposed that have not passed on the floor.
Why don't
like already trying to rule? So, like, I'm glad those didn't pass because it's just more or less back to Tommy Tuberville's coaching days.
You're right.
Kind of what it said. I wasn't for that.
But why
at
don't
least
they
someone's
just
talking on their?
why don't-
by the way, I'm for the player being represented. but
Exactly.
I don't know how to get that going.
It's going to be a hard task. I get it because the horse is out of the barn now. It's hard to get him back in. But why don't the SEC, the heads of all of these get together like in seriously, because it seems like everybody's just want to, they figure eventually, all of this is going to split up. It's going to just be the
That's
SEC,
right.
the Big Ten, and maybe the ACC, however they figure these other conferences out. There's only
Right.
really going to be 3 major conferences, and then we can take care of it then.
So my fear in that is if the top conference, you're talking about the SEC and the Big Ten,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because the others just follow what they do. They're taking less and grant of rights just to be a part of the pack.
Mhm.
So it's really 2 conferences, and it's really
you're right about
one.
that.
It's really one TV network. So it's either Disney's going to run things, or there's going to be not. It doesn't have to be a strict ruling body.
Mhm.
It can just be, again, it can be a guardrail. It doesn't have to be a line down the middle of the pavement. So like it keeps you on course in some way. Because again, right now, we were talking numbers earlier. Like who knows what your favorite college team, your players, who knows who wears 85 anymore?
Mhm.
Because it's a different player every year.
But my thing is, okay, just a template. Look at the model of the
That's a
NFL
good
or
one.
the
Yeah.
NBA or whatever. Just get a template. And if you say there's a cap on every team, there's a
Yeah.
cap. Not saying you can't play X player, X amount of money, but it runs like the NFL. We got a salary cap, and we got to get everybody within the salary cap based upon television revenue and all this other stuff. But I don't think they want to do that. Because now
Well,
we
so-
start negotiating the revenue from the television. That's when the money gets huge, and
No
they don't
doubt.
want that.
No doubt. I mean, look, let's look at it from the perspective of so there was the House versus the NCAA settlement. A former player who sued, he's in the Olympic sport, I believe, sued the NCAA for past NIL rights or money. Well, there's a settlement now with the NCAA on that, and coming of that is going to be this $20.5 million cap. That's
Doesn't it go back to 2012? I think, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, so with that in mind, like they're already trying to put something in place so they don't get or they have a plan the next time they get sued moving forward. Like there's going to be a cap. So I mean, again, it's way over my head. I understand why Saban said lawyers need to be involved. I'd rather have Saban and someone like him. Again, it could
eventually
be
lawyers
multiple
got to get
people
involved.
speaking
Yes.
on behalf of the sport more than the business. And you have to have both. You have to have both. There's always going to be the business side of anything, but at least I got a little ball discussion in that. You know what I mean? Like we're talking some ball and what it means on the field more than it means at the concession. Or honestly, the fan. The fan's getting the extra 10% on their ticket. It's called a talent tax. It's just extra money so they can go out and keep their budget going while they pay players too. They're trying to get the same revenue they had prior. So it's all business. I just want to know that if I'm paying the 10%, that what about the state, my interstate rival? Are they on the same guidelines, or are they just going to go up to 20% and then I'll be taxed 20%? If I'm a fan, I want to know like what's the structure here. And I think right now it's just kind of like in certain fan bases don't really care what they pay. They're always going to be part team owner. There's a feeling of that. And quite frankly,
They're the
there's
Green
one
Bay
or two
Packers.
people at every university that probably play team owner. I don't know who they are. And
now you're right about that.
So at least with that in mind, I get some semblance of order, because otherwise you can make the college football playoff and feel like you won something, but the money's still going to the same universities.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton
And
with
the same
Bro
players.
joining us on the program. Hutton, great stuff, my friend. We'll chat next week.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I always enjoy this, guys.
Thank you. Talk next week. Jonathan Hutton on the program. I'm getting Derek all riled up today. Topic choices and such. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek, I think it was last week, we heard from several Titans veteran players. We heard from Tyler Lockett. We heard from Chig Okonkwo. We heard from Peter Skoronski. And a lot of the questions were asked were about their initial impressions of Cam Ward and how he's fitting in with the team. Now, he'd only been a member of the team for like a week, if that. But they said great things about him from what they were able to gather in a short period of time. But one thing that got me wondering about was the process of earning the trust and respect of a locker room, especially as a highly drafted quarterback. So you referenced it earlier in the show, and I wanted you to take us behind the scenes from your time in Baltimore in 2008 when Joe Flacco, who was a first-round draft pick in 2008, he wasn't a number 1 overall pick. I believe he was 18th in the 2008 NFL draft. But you have the experience of a rookie quarterback coming into the locker room and trying to earn the trust and respect of the veterans in the room. So I thought it would be educational for you to share your experience with Flacco and how you would advise Cam Ward about going about, again, earning that trust and respect. So let's set the scene. In 2008, and correct me if I have any of these details wrong, in 2008, you had already been in Baltimore for 3 years. 3 seasons. Yes. So the 2008 season would have been your 4th season as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. The team was coming off of a 5-11 season. You started 4-2, 9-game losing streak.
Yes, it was bad.
You ended the season 5-11. Brian Billick was fired.
Yes.
Replaced by John Harbaugh, who's still there. As you said earlier, Steve McNair retired after that season, correct?
Yes.
So the Ravens needed the quarterback. Again, Flacco was the 18th overall pick in the 2008 draft. In August of 2008, Joe Flacco went from 3rd stringer to starter in the Ravens' 3rd preseason game after Troy Smith came down with a serious tonsil infection.
Yes.
And Kyle Bowler couldn't throw in warm-ups because of a shoulder injury. Flacco started in that preseason game, and he never gave up the starting job. And 5 months later, you were in the AFC title game with Joe Flacco, including a win right here against the top-seeded Titans in the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yes.
So let's go back to that time. And it's interesting because, as I just said, Flacco did not come in planning to be the starting quarterback that season, as opposed to Cam Ward this season with the Titans, as we presume. But I'm especially wondering, because Flacco became the starter so abruptly, I feel like he had to sort of cram things in a short period of time. So let's go back to a young Joe Flacco entering a Ravens locker room with a lot of proud, qualified, proven veterans. Yourself, on the defensive side of the ball, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, right? Terrell Suggs.
Todd Heap.
There. Right. So what do you remember about that time and what Flacco did to ingratiate himself to his new team?
I think Flacco, one of the first, when you see this guy come in, he's 6'5", 6'6", big guy, sort of the body frame of a Ben Roethlisberger. I think he was a little bit faster than Ben. Yeah, he was. But that body type, big, strong, physical, that's what you saw right away. But then once you went out to practice field and he started throwing the ball, you saw, man, this dude got a cannon. He can play. But Joe didn't come in thinking he was going to be the starter. He came in, I think, compete. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, felt, okay, we can have him sit a year. Unfortunately, but fortunately for him, quarterbacks get sick. Troy Smith goes down with illness. Bowler can't throw. He's thrown in there. I think one of the best things that Joe did was to talk to other veteran guys. He talked to other veteran guys. Other veteran guys came and talked with him. He didn't walk in saying, I'm the leader. He walked in saying, I think and I believe, let me learn from these guys that are here. And let me just do my job. Let me worry about doing my job. And their leadership will come. Leadership comes when you start performing and you start getting comfortable. Then you feel, okay, now I can step into that leadership role, especially for a young guy. And in Joe's case, I know that was sort of the thing. You got a bunch of guys. You walk into a locker room with Ray and Ed and Suggs and Ogden and myself and Heap. You don't walk in thinking I'm going to lead this team. You walk in thinking I need to learn. I need to ingratiate myself to these individuals as quickly as possible. The only way I'm going to earn their respect is if I go out and do the job that they have drafted me to do. Come in on time, be here before anybody get here, leave after everybody else is left. You the last person in, last person out, first person in. We start seeing that. That's what builds leadership. Joe didn't come in thinking I'm the leader. No, he played his part and the leadership came, especially on a team like that when there are a bunch of leaders already. But he found his way through that first year. And I think it was the Carolina game. Tell me when was that Carolina game? You tell me when that Carolina game was.
You played. I don't see a game against Carolina.
It's not that year.
It
must have been the next following year.
I see that the Ravens started out. You won your first two games against division rivals.
Yeah.
Against Cincinnati and Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
You lose to Pittsburgh in overtime, to Tennessee, and to Indianapolis to fall to 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
But then you won 4 consecutive games after that.
It was the next year.
All right, let me pull up that game.
But there was where I think he truly stepped into his role as the leader of that offense from a quarterback position. He and I got into it, and he held his own. That's mad respect for you for that.
So that was 2010.
Yeah. Mad respect. So
37-13 at Carolina. Yeah. A 37-13 win.
Yeah. And I knew right then it was like, okay, this is it's really his offense, because you appreciate that. A veteran guy, you appreciate that he's standing his ground. Like, he's like, listen, I'm one of the leaders too. I'm the lead. Like, you're standing your ground. But before that, he just sat and he watched. He did his job and he watched the other leaders around him, and he found his own way to lead. He found his own avenue to lead in. And I think Joe was a good leader. Super Bowl winning, MVP. I think it was the MVP of the Super Bowl that year. Or was it Ray Lewis? I think it might have been.
He was.
Yeah, it was Joe Flacco. So it took time for that to develop where he became the leader, period. But he came in he didn't come in thinking that it should be given to him. He came in, he was one of the guys, what can I do for this place? He was one of those guys. Come in, what can I do? How can I ingratiate myself? How do I become a leader of this thing? You got to become a leader of 51 other grown men. That's hard to do. But he was able to find his niche, and it took a while, but he was able to find his niche. But what helps is you build around him. So whereas he doesn't, you don't rush that process at all. You let it take his time. You want him to develop in the process, yes, but you don't rush it. Why? So what do? You go out and get you a hell of a defense. You get your really good running game, and you let that work for you and allow the quarterback to grow within what you're doing based upon that. Because now it's not a rush to get him going. You take your time. Our defense is only going. What did I say? We gave up 11 points per game.
Sounds right.
11 points per game. We're going to take this easy. We're going to work you into it. And when we see that you are comfortable with what we're doing and everybody's coming, now we can elevate you even more. And that was they did it and I'm not saying like Joe's a Hall of Famer, but I think Baltimore did it the right way. When you have to play a guy that early, don't put him in a position where he has to go out there and play Superman.
I'm looking at your game log from that season, and you quickly became his favorite target.
Mm-hmm.
In his first 3 games as an NFL quarterback, he targeted you 25 times.
Mm-hmm.
You caught 16 balls for 223 yards, including one game where you had 8 receptions on 14 targets for 137 yards and a overtime loss to the Steelers. So what was it like with Joe Flacco getting to know you and earning your respect and leaning on you as he is trying to command this offense?
Repetition. Hours and hours and hours. Like I said, when I signed with Baltimore, and it's before Joe was there, when I signed with Baltimore, it was imperative for me to get there very quickly. Because why? I wanted to build a rapport with the quarterback, Kyle Bowler, as quickly as I possibly could. And it was the same with Joe. When they drafted Joe, did I have to be there in those small? No, I was there. Why? Because I wanted to be. There was no excuse, none whatsoever. If Joe was throwing, I was catching. That's just the way it was. So you have to build up that time, especially with the young quarterback. That's why I said, with Ridley, there shouldn't be a time when Cam Ward is throwing the football, you ain't around. I'm going to repeat that. There shouldn't be a time when Cam Ward is organizing, throwing the football, that you shouldn't be there. If Cam wanted to organize a throwing session at 10 o'clock at night, be there. If Cam want to organize a throwing session at 8 o'clock in the morning, be there. Why? Because you don't get that time anymore because the NFL took it away from you. So if you want to build the rapport very quickly with a young quarterback, get in that room with them. Get on that field with them. They're not, again, has he signed his contract yet? I don't think he signed it yet.
I don't believe he has officially signed his contract.
Okay. Rookie minicamp. When
Which
happens,
starts in a couple of days.
It starts in a couple of days. When the veteran guys come from that point on, there shouldn't be a time that when Cam Ward is throwing, you are not next to him catching it.
You meaning Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley, yes. And that goes for the other guys too.
Tyler Lockett,
Jefferson, Bryce Oliver, definitely Treylon Burks.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that. Jackson. Anytime.
The rookie receivers.
Yeah, anytime that Cam Ward is throwing the football and it's organized. I'm not just talking about his backyard, but you can be in his backyard too if you want to. But anytime he's organizing, I don't care if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you need to be there catching it. That helps him to build a rapport with you. So when y'all get in camp, y'all ready to go. He knows your body movement. You know how he releases the ball. He knows when you're getting ready to break down. It becomes more, you want to get away from verbal communication as quickly as possible. Not to say that you're not going to have it, but you want to get away from verbal communication as quickly as possible. And what does verbal communication mean, Derek? That means that I can look at Steve McNair. He knows exactly what I'm doing. I can look at the defense, and I know exactly where Steve wants me to be. I don't need to talk to him. I don't need to look at him. I can see that blitz. I don't need to point it out to him because I know he sees the same thing that I see, and he trusts that I'm gonna run that side adjust. That's how you build. That's what you need to do. That's how you earn that trust of a young quarterback, or that's how the young quarterback earns the trust of you, vice versa. Is that you be where you should. Heimerdinger told me this plenty of times. Just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's how you earn the quarterback's trust and catch the football.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to get Derek's thoughts on how Cam Ward can earn the trust and respect of the Titans locker room. Again, rookie minicamp, I think it starts on Friday. I'll double check that, but it's within the next couple of days. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. Oh my.
This is the song.
This is the song.
It's the eek, ak, ork, ak, ak. Oh, I think that's what they said.
Where is it? I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah. It's coming pretty soon, yeah.
We should just do the rest of the show with this underneath.
I don't know how you dance to this song, though.
Oh, man. I do not remember this.
You don't remember that? Oh, my goodness.
I'm familiar with the Jetsons.
Eek, ak, ork, ak, ak. Oh, my goodness. I still remember that episode to this day, man. I don't know why. Maybe because the dance was so ridiculous. But there you go.
We all have to learn this dance, I suppose.
Watch the video.
So you referenced a heated exchange that you and Joe Flacco had on the sideline in 2010. I found an article on Pro Football Talk that discusses this very topic.
Mm-hmm.
According to Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun.
Mike Preston. Mike Preston is sort of like the what am I thinking?
Kaharski?
Yeah, he's like a Paul. PK. He's like a PK. He's just like PK. He has that sort of PK in him.
Apparently, you weren't happy that Flacco was late in getting you a pass.
Yeah.
The two players had to be separated by other players, and offensive coordinator Cam Cameron played mediator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a third down, man. I don't play when it comes to my third down. It was a third down, and I was open. And obviously, he didn't get the ball to me. He didn't put it where it needed to be. And we end up stalling on that pass play.
Earlier in the game, Cameron was the subject of Mason's ire. Mason was reportedly irritated about the Ravens' pace not being fast enough, and he exchanged a few words with Cameron.
Yes, man. It's like, I don't know. It was a lot. It was some things going on there. I guess I was just peeved at the word. I don't know. No, it was nothing going on. But look, it's like, listen, we got a pace. We got a standard that we set, and it's not there. We need to pick it up. And I don't mind going after. I don't care who you are. I'm gonna come at you, like, because I feel what we preaching is not being performed out on the field. So I have every right as a leader to say, hey, listen, we need to go. We need to pick this up. And we end up picking it up. But then Joe and I got into it after that.
So we're talking about Derek's experience in Baltimore in 2008 with a rookie Joe Flacco. And the big difference between Flacco in 2008 and Cam Ward this year, not just the draft slots. Joe Flacco was the 18th overall pick out of Delaware in 2008 for all of you Blue Hens fans out there. But Flacco was not expected to play that season. It was because of a serious tonsil infection to Troy Smith and an injury to Kyle Bowler that Joe Flacco was thrust into the starting role in the preseason and never gave it up. And the Ravens had an outstanding season. So what I want to know from Derek is his experience in Baltimore with Flacco, and what he saw from Flacco in that experience, and what he would advise Cam Ward to do as Cam Ward enters the NFL, because there's going to be a lot riding on Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
The team's success and his success are intertwined. They turned down multiple very generous offers.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans did, to stay at number one and take Cam Ward. So there's a lot riding on Cam Ward's success. And I don't get the sense, just from what I know of Cam Ward's story, which we've recounted many, many times, that he is going to go in there and think that his poop doesn't stink.
No.
But there are a lot of battle-tested veterans in that locker room, players who don't play. And by don't play, I mean, don't suffer fools.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about how you already started discussing this before the break, but I'd love for you to continue to elaborate. If you were advising Cam Ward based on your experience with Joe Flacco, you talked about the receivers and needing to be there. But for Cam Ward, in terms of how he conducts himself in the locker room and team meetings and even playing around in the locker room, because that does happen in the NFL, in the locker room, what would your advice to him be?
You shouldn't be the person that's playing around.
Ever.
No, not ever. I mean, there's a time and a place.
I speaking of this, I was watching Untold. Netflix has that series Untold. And man, oh man, I got sucked into this one last night. because I was living in the Washington, D.C. area at the time. It was about Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton and the gunfight that they almost had. And those Wizards teams, man, they were nuts. A lot of interesting personalities on that team, to say the least. But Gilbert Arenas, for example, he was the jokester. He made a point of emphasizing that he grew up that way and he was the jokester. And Javaris Crittenton, who had come over from the Lakers, he was drafted by the Lakers. It did not work out in Los Angeles. He gets a fresh start in Washington. He was the opposite. He kind of stayed back. Ultimately, I'm hoping it does not get to what happened with the Wizards in the Titans locker room. But, I see your point that, so what you're saying is that if there's some gentle ribbing going on in the locker room, that Cam Ward can be a part of it, but he shouldn't be the court jester.
He shouldn't be the ringleader. Now, he can, every once in a while, because listen, being the starting quarterback of an NFL team entails a lot. And you very seldom have time to be grab button with everybody else, because you're in me.
I'm sorry. I know what you're trying to say. Yes. You're trying to clean it up. Grab button. Sorry. I need to grow up. Please continue.
But you can't just be doing that because, especially as a rookie, you're trying to spend as much time in that playbook as you possibly can. And that's what players are watching. That's what those veteran players are watching. They have no interest in seeing you play cornhole or whatever games that we have invented inside, NFL locker rooms. We're not in the business of watching you play that. We're not. We want to see you coming in and out of meeting rooms, on the football field, doing what you need to do. You are slowly becoming the face of this. You are the captain of this ship. So you need to move accordingly. Again, you can have your playful side. Steve McNair had his playful side. Joe Flacco had his playful side. But more times than not, those guys were doing their quarterback thing. They were making sure they had every T crossed and every I dotted. They were making sure another thing that he needs to do, and I'm sure he will, the relationship between the quarterback, the center, quarterback, the offensive line. Steve had a good relationship with his offensive line, good relationship with his center. It seemed like Ryan Tannehill had a really good relationship with Ben Jones. We know Ben had a really good relationship with Derrick Henry. But it seemed like that relationship with Tannehill and Ben was a really good one where he was just an extension of the quarterback. You need to get your relationship like that with your center, starting with your center, then with the rest of your offensive linemen. I mean, get it all done at the same time. But that's the type of relationship you need to be building with those guys. Making sure guys know exactly what to do, making sure that you and him see or y'all see it the same way. You should be the guy coming in the locker room as the starting quarterback, walking up to one of the wide receivers. Hey, man, this is how we're looking at it. Do you see it the same way? Or after a play, come back in the locker room. Hey, man, we need to go over this play. That's what he needs to do as a rookie. He needs to spend as much time trying to, pick the brains or, trying to figure out the guys mentally. Because the more you figure them out, the more you build a relationship with them, the better it is on the field. Again, build your relationship up. The three key players outside of the offensive coordinator, to me, it's the running back, the center, and whoever your number one pass catcher is going to be. Y'all three need to build a cord, a strong cord where y'all know what's going on. Like I said, you don't need to communicate with me. I know exactly. We're all seeing the same thing. The center sees something, the quarterback sees what the center sees, and the wide receiver out in the back sees what the quarterback sees, and the running back sees what everybody else sees. If we're all on the same page, but that only happens with time. The NFL don't give you that much time together anymore. So if that's the case, then time off the field is just as critical as time on the field in that building.
One texter says, so no cringe commercials, referring to Will Levis.
No, listen, I'm not saying.
And I'm sure the endorsements are going to be rolling in for Cam Ward.
I'm sure there will be, he's the first pick in the NFL draft. it would be endorsements hand over fist for him. But he has to understand, and I think he does. Just look at back. Football is your first and main job. That's your first and main job. Football. Getting this team to buy into you, not just into the offense, because I can buy into the offense and what the coach preaches, but if I don't buy into the quarterback, it makes no difference. Like, we're not going to have a good offense. He and I are not going to see the things the same way. So not only does the quarterback mean the head coach has to get a buy, you got to get a buy-in. The quarterback has to get a buy-in from everybody. We got to get a buy-in from you. You got to make an emphasis of that.
And I remember last year with the Mayo cologne and all of that stuff, and the commercial where he's wearing the flowy white shirt and all of that stuff. Will Levis, I mean, I was of the mind that, hey, your career might be short. If you can make some extra money, I am not going to fault you for doing that. However, I can imagine some of his teammates going, "What the heck is this guy doing? What has he done that he can do this?" And I like, again, I don't want to sound like a boring old biddy here, which is the second time I've referenced myself as that in this show. But I don't see Cam Ward having that issue.
No, I don't see him having that issue either. Some guys can have success and you wouldn't know it. And some guys have success and let everybody know it. Cam, like Steve, like Joe, they had success and you didn't know it. Why? Because they just put their head down and kept going to work. That's what Cam needs to do. Regardless of what success he has, put your head down, keep working. Keep relying on those guys in front of you. Keep trusting those guys on the outside. And those guys on the outside, you got to keep talking to the quarterback. Make sure y'all always on the same page, especially a young quarterback, man. You got to, that's why I said, like, that episode that happened last year with Calvin Ridley, maybe I just pulled up. I wasn't running. What did I say then? You couldn't have it then? And that was, with Will Levis. You definitely can't have it now. There should be never a time where you say, man, I wasn't running fast. I wasn't running full speed. Why wasn't you running full speed? Why? That's how we build a rapport when you run full speed and I throw you the football. We don't build a rapport by you running half speed and me launching the ball down the field. No, run like you run in a game. We can't have that. So there should never be a time where Calvin Ridley is going out there and Cam Ward is underneath center, let alone anybody, but Cam Ward, more importantly, that he's half-assing it. Never.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on Cam Ward on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But coming up next, we'll welcome in our friend Jared Stillman, leading into Stillman and Company. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Jared Stillman, big timing us right now because he's Jared Stillman. He's supposed to be here. Where's Jared?
Yeah.
Come on, Jared. Do I need to shame you on the air, Jared? I will.
Yeah. Well, let Jared be Jared.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Okay, hold on. I think Jared's here now. Hello, Jared.
I'm trying to time up. Like you guys screw around with the break times. I guess you have different break times than
We
the rest
do
of us. You
because
must
there
be
are
special.
well, there are usually 3 of us, so our segments go a little bit
Exactly.
longer.
I mean, I was sitting here like trying to time out what time you guys come to break or
I'll
come
give
back
you a
from break
text
at.
next time.
And I'm like sitting here and chat GBTing out my
Yeah.
my order.
I heard that.
I'll tell you, I am the laziest freaking person sometimes. Like I'm not even.
Clip that.
Yes, please.
I
We're just
will
gonna clip
tell
out.
you,
I'm the laziest person. We're gonna clip the other stuff out.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be like the Paul Kaharski smoking weed one.
Yes.
But I mean, it is this chat GBT between that and Instacart. I think I may be the laziest person on the planet at this point in time.
Now, how
But
does
I
that work?
digress.
Are you doing a lot of baby shopping on Instacart?
Oh my God. Diapers, formula,
Yep.
whatever. It's
Yep.
like, we're out Instacart. Again, I'm not trying to give a free ad here, but I've been an Instacarter for a while, but it was much easier when I had one mouth to feed. And now between 2 dogs and a baby and a girlfriend, I mean, now it's 5.
Woo.
It's definitely.
It
it's,
grows fast, man. Grows
That's-
fast.
Must be what it was
You're
like.
a
being
family
Derek
man
Mason.
now, Jared
Exactly,
Stillman. You're a
man.
family man now. So yes.
I have a bone to pick with this radio program.
What
Okay.
now?
What now?
And
What now?
one of you two in particular.
All
and I
right.
bet you won't guess which one.
It's probably Derek.
Yes.
It is Derek. Derek,
Yes.
I listened to the rant today.
Uh-huh.
I
Which
listened
one?
to you
I
There,
had a
there have
few.
been a couple.
Yeah, I had
today.
a couple.
I just listened to you go off about the Titans and giving away your number and Keith Bullock's number and Frank Wycheck's number and Blaine Bishop's number. And I say this with all due respect, but we can't retire every
No,
single
I didn't say
number.
retire. Did I say retire?
Alteron Werner had like 2 Pro Bowl
You
seasons.
did not say
Do we
retire.
I
have
did
to
not say retire. I did
Do
not say
I-
retire.
But I don't understand that you got to be selective.
I say
so what,
be-
you have to
be
be drafted in the
selective.
first round in order to
No.
get number 85.
Like, don't give some scrub the number, man. Point
They
blank.
didn't know Chig was going to be some scrub.
I'm not
who was
saying
more
Chig's a
worried about
scrub.
his vacation
I still got
than he was
faith in
worried about
Chig.
catching the ball.
I
I
said
got
Derek.
faith in Chig.
I said Derek should show up to training camp, and during a drill where Chig is running a route, Derek should run alongside him and rip the jersey off his back during the drill. That's what I suggest.
I just was listening today, and I got to tell you, again, this was incredibly entertaining radio because I was absolutely fascinated by all of this. But I'm sitting
That's
here
what we want you to
listening
be.
to Derek talk about like, how dare
for
they
a per,
give
for a per, hold
somebody
on, for a
Keith
person
Bullock's
that
number?
complains about somebody
Randy
going on,
Curran.
for somebody to complain about somebody else going on a trip and you being up in arms about that,
Which also
you're
involves
telling
Chig.
me like
I
what I'm
wasn't
saying
upset.
doesn't have validity? Seriously?
I wasn't upset about Chig going on a trip.
No,
I
I'm not
was
saying. I'm saying
upset
you brought
about
it up.
Chig going on 7 trips.
It
or
doesn't
whatever it was
matter.
during the offseason.
He's still getting his workouts in.
Now, do we know that he didn't hit all of those places? Like he mentioned going to Japan, right?
like
and
a barnstorming tour.
Australia. Maybe he did the.
Was it a 2-week vacation and he just
maybe
did it all
he
in
did
2
one
weeks?
vacation and did all of those places.
Exactly. In 2
All
weeks.
I know is that the great Derek Mason, who thinks that only good players should be allowed to wear his number.
Absolutely. You damn right. I stand
The
on
great
business.
Derek Mason only
I
has
am
time
great.
for one
Absolutely.
vacation
I
in the
am-
offseason.
listen, I'm going to
and
say this.
Chig apparently has time for
I'm
5.
going to say this with boldness. Hear me and hear me well.
Say it with your chest,
I was
Derek
damn
Mason.
great. You exactly right. And if you're going to give out 85, which they are, be selective. That's all I say. You were selective. You gave it to Nate Washington. Great. Nate did a great job. So now add to it. Give it to somebody else that's going to do a great job. Don't just
What if
give
they
it
gave
to
it to?
Berkster
What if they gave?
or somebody
what if-
like that.
What if they gave Samari Rolls number 21
Uh-huh.
or Blaine Bishop's number 23
Mhm.
to L'Jarius Sneed?
Well, the Jerry Sneed, hey,
He was supposed to be good.
yeah, so they gave it to
What
him.
about Caleb
But he
Farley?
proved
He
it.
was a first round
But they
pick.
prove
He
it.
was
Nah,
supposed to
listen,
be
listen,
good.
listen. Again, be selective. I didn't say it needed to be retired. There's only 2 jerseys that are retired. I think the third should be as well, but that's neither here nor there.
Frank White.
Well, there will
Frank
be a
Wycheck.
third that's retired, and it'll be 22.
Yeah, 22.
You were referring to
but
Frank
I was referring to Frank. But you should be selective with giving that number out. I know it's not retired, but you can be selective in giving out 89 when you look at a player like, nah, bro, I ain't giving you that number. You can give someone else. You can get another number. Or 85. Don't just give it to Ferkser or somebody else. No, I put in work with that number. I was great with that number. I'm standing on business with that. And I argue anybody up and down. Numbers are facts. Check the numbers.
No, I mean, your numbers are incredible. I mean, you.
No, but I'm saying, but I'm
not knocking that. But like,
but you're right. As far as retirement, I would like them to retire it, but I know they won't, and I'm not that foolish to think they will. But I just said, be selective, man. What if you? Okay, Jared. What if you you had your prize mic that you use? You know,
like Rush Limbaugh with the golden
exactly.
microphone.
You had your gold. They didn't retire yet, but everybody knows that Jared's that golden mic. Wouldn't you want them, if they're not going to be retired, wouldn't you want them to be selective in who they hand that gold mic down to, the next guy? Wouldn't you want it to be that way?
I mean, that's a really weird
but I'm just saying, because it's
I'm not sure it's a very apt one. I will say this. I agree with you in being selective. You know, some teams don't retire numbers simply because of the idea that if we retired numbers, we'd have to, and I think it's like the Raiders and the Cowboys, that we honor our players, but we don't retire our numbers. And I'm okay with that. But here's what I would say when it comes to the Titans and the Oilers and everything else. Mm-hmm. There's two numbers that have been retired that I think should have been retired.
Exactly.
I think there's one other number 22, that will eventually be retired. And I believe that number should be retired. And outside of that, I think that every other jersey, and I mean this with all due respect to Frank Wycheck and Derek Mason and Keith Bullock and Javon Curse and Blaine Bishop and Delaney Walker and Jarrell Casey and A.J. Brown and whoever else, at that point, to me, it's fair game. I mean, we're unretiring a number for somebody who hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL from a Hall of Famer. To me, I'm outraged by that, but I am selective in whose numbers I retire. Again, over a 25-year period, I'm talking about three guys.
Yes.
You know, McNair, George, and Derrick Henry. And I just believe that that's the selective process. And then everything else, with all due respect, is fair game.
I get about it, but just be selective. I mean, listen, I would beg to differ and say Frank needed to be retired, but that's, neither here nor there. But my thing is just be selective, because when you handed that number out, what it sort of symbolizes when somebody looks at it. Don't give it to the guy that It's like, man, if that guy's going to be a player or not. Don't just hand it to him.
I will say this, as a Titan fan, I will be on the field sometimes at training camp, and I will see somebody wearing, number 90, or I will see some, Ty Zenter, the backup punter last year, wore number 17, which of course was Ryan Tannehill's number. And I'm like, really? You're going to do that to Tannehill right after he leaves? You're going to give it to the backup punter? Like,
see, be selective. Really? That's all I'm saying. Be selective.
Jared, quickly, yesterday you were referencing an interview that Ravens GM Eric DeCosta gave to an in-house podcast about a paper that we've referenced many times on this show. I believe the paper is Overconfidence versus Market Efficiency in the National Football League, which was written in part by a Nobel Prize winning economist. Eric DeCosta referred to it as the quote-unquote loser's curse. What did you learn? What was the most fascinating aspect of what you learned about that particular study?
I thought what was fascinating was how quickly ChatGPT can assimilate the information from the entire 65-page study and then spit me out kind of a breakdown. Like, I mean, I think they say that they know when AI writes papers now for kids in school, but I would have never read a book if I could have just put it in there and said, hey, tell me about XYZ.
Back in my day, we had No Fear Shakespeare, Cliff Notes.
So I saw the study, like I clicked the study and I saw, it is a detailed 65-page study, and I stuck it in there. And basically what it says is these teams, everybody has biases about everything, right? I mean, I think we're seeing a personal bias that Derek has when it comes to guys he played with and teams he played on, because with all of his talking about Keith Bullock and Blaine Bishop and Frank Wycheck, we didn't hear anything about other Titan players of other eras. So everybody has their own personal biases, which we all know about. And basically the study that I took away was just because you like a player doesn't mean that the other teams like the players. And it made me think back to this weekend where we saw, these teams are starting now to release their war room videos, which I can just imagine the old guard would hate. But I'm watching Chris Ballard, who I think is a total schlub. But Chris Ballard in Indianapolis is just jumping up and down when Miami took Kenneth Grant so that they could take Tyler Warren. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta, who was one pick behind them, according to an Albert Breer story, they were jumping up and down in Atlanta when Indianapolis took Tyler Warren because they could take Jalen Walker. And one of the big things in the study is all these teams try to trade up because they assume that other teams like the players they like, when in reality, that's not necessarily the case. And I think back to the Titans trading up for Rashaan Evans. Rashaan Evans sucked, and so it's easy to say that was a bad trade. But in hindsight, if you had just stayed 4 or 5 picks back, don't you think Rashaan Evans would have come to you? And if not, then maybe you dodge a Rashaan Evans bullet. So that was kind of a big takeaway from that, other than the obvious takeaway, which is that no one guy is that much better at drafting than the other guy, and that the best guys are the ones that get future picks and years in advance and things like that. And then the revelation from the Athletic story that Willie sent me yesterday, that you also sent me, Adam, was basically that you can tell these guys, hey, the statistics say this is the better option. And when push comes to shove, Jerry Jones will look at it and say, but I won't.
And it also gave you an excuse to yell about Chad Brinker for an hour, which I wonder if
did I not hit all of his go-tos there, though? Business school, AI, analytics.
Yes.
So Chig is going to be your punch bag on the field, and Brinker is going to be your punch bag off the field.
Yes.
Chick sucks.
And with that, that'll do it for us today. We'll be back. Willie Donick will be back tomorrow as well at 11 o'clock. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Wednesday. Peace.